Testing. 1, 2, 3. Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. John Hansman here with Truett. And I'm excited to do a live stream / webinar. This webinar will be available for you to look at later, of course, on all the media channels. But if you want a copy of it, feel free to reach out to me directly. And I'd be happy to help get a hold of a copy of this and get it over to you. But if you're watching this, I guess you're already watching it. So I don't know what I'm talking about. So we're going to talk a little bit about employee risk. Now, some of you have maybe seen this webinar before because I've live streamed it. I think last month, and I generally try to do a webinar once a month just because it gets it's just some more knowledge out there. So that's what I'm focused on. And so if you want to join, if you're on LinkedIn, you can go through LinkedIn, but if you want to actually be a part of the private, like the chat that we have, or post a comment, feel free to post a comment and I will get back to it. And then we'll figure from there. It looks like on Facebook and on YouTube, you can post a comment live and I'll see it. But if you're on LinkedIn, I will throw LinkedIn on my other screen just so that I can keep an eye on it for you as well. So if I see a comment popping in, then we can make that happen. So we're going to talk about employee risk today. What I'm excited about is I've redone this PowerPoint presentation to just come at it from a different angle and really talk about what happens when you're unprepared. So there's a lot of companies that we run across when we're doing risk assessments or we're just talking to them in general. And we find out that they literally have no preparation at all. So what does no preparation mean? No preparation means they don't have any backups. It means that if they were to have a data breach or a cybersecurity attack, they have they have no plan. They don't know what they would do. They don't have anybody even watching over their uh, their infrastructure, their computers, their email, any of that. Like they're literally completely unprepared. And so the question becomes, what does it look like when a medium-sized business, so when I say medium-sized business, we're going to talk about a business today that has 50 employees. This will be a CPA firm that has 50 employees. And we are going to look at what it looks like if one of those gets hacked. So we've got a case study that we're going to talk about today that has to do with what happens when your business is completely unprepared. So keep in mind that this is going to be based on scale of your business. So when you look at this, they have 50 employees. If you have 20, it's going to be a different scale. So keep that in mind as you watch this with me. So we're going to jump on and I'm going to share. Whoa, crazy things are happening here. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started here. So just bear with me just a moment. And we'll get that up. Well, here we go. So again, we're going to talk about how do you fortify your business and how do we confront employee cybersecurity risk? Like when we're talking about cybersecurity, we're talking about risk management. Risk management does not necessarily look like we are defending the world 100% from cybersecurity attacks. It's very important that we understand that some of the best companies in the world, I sat and listened to a webinar, not a webinar, I was in a live event and they had a panelist, and one of the panelists was from Whitman College. And from everything I could hear and see, they did a bang up job of being ready. They had plans in place, they had everything in place, and they did a really good job. But yet, they had a cybersecurity attack that came to a piece of equipment that someone found what we call a 0-day vulnerability on. Means that no one really knew about it until it was too late. And so they ended up going through a big data breach and whatnot. But when you listen to them talk, they're more prepared than almost anybody. And yet something still happened. So we're never 100%. That's just important for us to understand that it's just not feasible for us to ever believe that. And I would say that if anybody says that they can protect you 100%, they're not accurate about that. And I would be very leery of that. So we're going to talk about that today. And what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about just we'll start out with just asking the question, do you know anyone who's been a victim of a cyber attack? So if you've got access to the chat, throw an answer in there. But when I do this in a room of people with say I've got a room of 50 people, 60 people, I generally more than half of the room raises their hand as to say, even if I just narrow it down to the last year, almost everyone knows someone who's been a victim of a cybersecurity attack or a breach. And here's where it gets crazy. A breach, a data breach particularly, can mean if you got a letter from somebody that told you that your data has been compromised. I can tell you that I've had two in the last year and a half. I've had two different companies that was doing business with me that were pretty big organizations that have that announced that there was a data breach, and then they offered me free security to watch my stuff for 2 years or whatever it was. The numbers are staggering, and we're seeing just that there is a ton of activity happening that is costing people money, both on the private side and then on the business side. So we talk about this thing called the silent killer. And what we're talking about is that 72% of business leaders have a cybersecurity ransom place, but 49% said they would pay the ransom out night. Right. Now, that is the 72% is a surprising number. That's a surprising statistic to me because I see a lot less than that. And maybe they assume that it's attached to their policy, but 49% say they pay ransomware outright. 94% of malware is delivered via email, and 10% or 10 employees equals an average of 90 email-borne virus threats per month, right? So then we talk about 81% of small businesses or small, medium-sized businesses report that new types of attacks have evaded their traditional security solutions like antivirus. Over 80% of businesses pay the ransom and they will get hacked a second time. I think what's fascinating when we look at traditional security solutions like antivirus, we're seeing that really the best course of action, and we'll be talking about this later, is to have a layered approach to security and not just have your eggs all in one basket. So here's just some other information. We talk about 61% of attacks used employee credentials. That's just a staggering number. 2021, 61% of attacks were employee credentials. 94% of attacks were delivered via email. On average, it takes 120 days for someone or a business to discover a data breach. 58% of malware attacks are victims are small businesses. And what's fascinating is you don't ever see any of us making the news when it happens, and it's always the big company that get the bad publicity. It's never the small businesses that have more of a risk of losing everything. 60% of small medium businesses that have a larger scale attack go out of business within 6 months of a data breach, particularly. 26% of organizations that suffer a breach don't do anything to prevent an attack. We were just in a meeting, and I was literally hearing stories of people sitting down with a client or potential client that said they had a ransom attack like less than a year ago, and their attitude was, I'm just not going to do anything about it. I don't want to spend any money to protect myself because I'll just go out of business, or I'll just throw away the computers and start all over. And it's really not that simple. So the question of the day when we talk about fortifying our business is, when your employees mess up, how much will it cost you? And I think that we don't put enough emphasis on training our employees and putting effort into employee programs so that it doesn't cost a lot of money when they mess up, or when they mess up, or maybe even that they don't, because we've put effort into training and into other things that keep that from happening. So when we talk about that, we're really talking about making sure that we understand the impact to the organization. So what we're talking about is financial loss. Data breaches expose sensitive information. And when you expose other people's sensitive information, there's a potential that you're liable for what happens to that information when it gets out. Reputational damage. So in other words, loss of trust from your customers and partners. Operational disruptions. Downtime is a huge thing depending on your industry. Downtime for a dental practice can cost $8,000 a day or more, depending on the size of the practice. It really can be disruptive and cost a lot of money. Okay, so we're going to talk about this company that's called North Peak CPA. Now, name is made up to change the keep people safe, obviously, but North Peak CPA, they're a small accounting firm, and they have actually 15 employees. I find that when I did some research, 15 employees is about the average. So they do tax preparation, financial advising, and small business accounting. Their estimated revenue is about 1.2 million. Um, and they're really excited about the fact that they leverage technology and efficiency, um, to make sure that their business is growing and that they're able to take in money. And so because of that, they have taken in a lot of they've taken in a lot of business, or they've adopted a lot of technology, just to make sure that they could actually perform what they said. I forgot to move the slide. So they're a firm that prides itself on leveraging technology for efficiency, and so that's super important. That, especially this case, as we start moving towards a digital age, more of what we do leaves paper and hangs out in digital form. So here's the worst case scenario for a CPA: cybersecurity attack during tax season. So the type of attack in this case study, is ransomware via a phishing scam. So one of the employees gets an email. Maybe it's from the accounting department. Maybe, it's just one of their regular people in the office that are helping with taxes. And they click on a link and it quickly spreads around the whole office. It attacks their server. It attacks all of their computers. And soon they find that all of their client files, financial documents, are encrypted. And this is going to cause a serious problem, especially during peak time when they're trying to get taxes done for their clients. So this company gets a ransom request for $50,000 in cryptocurrency. In this case, they choose not to pay for it because they don't, law enforcement and even us, we generally recommend that you don't pay for ransomware. Like if you have a ransomware incident and you pay, really all you're doing is just encouraging them to keep going. So in this case, they agreed to just basically not pay it. But the problem that they face is that all their data is compromised. So the extensive client tax returns, payroll records, sensitive financial data is all compromised. All of it is out in the wild for these people to lose or to use. Immediate financial loss is estimated at $150,000 due to the critical timing of the attack. So you think they're losing business every day because of this ransomware attack and its timing being during a critical time when they need to be up. The operational loss, they lose about $5,000 a day. And part of that is that, they're losing that money per day because of they're not able to do their job. And so if it's tax season, you have, two things that have to happen. You have to either get an extension or you've got to go somewhere else if your CPA can't do that work. Acute concern among clients is heightened due to the timing and the nature of the attack, leading to immediate and severe reputational damage. Again, people are just going to go somewhere else if they can't get the work done that they need. So what they saw was a 25% turnover of clients over the next year. Local news coverage caught wind of it because of some of the high class, clients that they were doing work for. They were doing work for clients that were way bigger than them, and the news caught wind of it. So then now they've got potential legal concerns because two businesses decided that they were going to start lawsuits. And then now all that data is available on the dark web for use. And now they've got a problem with all of their clients' data being out in places where it can cause really big damage. So we look at the firm's dilemma here, and it's really that they have data that's compromised. Again, clients' financial financial statements, sensitive documents are all encrypted. They didn't have any recent backups. due to the firm's inadequate security practices. And now we're finding that the staff can't even finish work because all of their customer files are lost. The CPA is forced to file for extensions for all their clients. And, the lack of preparedness that they had in this case uh, led to no crisis management. In other words, they did not know what to do. They had no clue. So they started calling around and asking for help. So the problem is that this also delayed the identification of the breach's full extent. So generally there's some specific recommendations that we have when you have a data breach, like unplug certain things, but not other things. And they don't have anybody to guide them through that process. So the firm hastily contracts an external IT company specialized in cybersecurity and data. And the cost of the IT services in this event ends up being close to $75,000 for emergency services, including the breach assessment, containment efforts, and the initial recovery steps. Most of this is because they didn't have anybody to help them until they call a company, and that company says, yes, it's going to be X amount per hour, which is maybe double the fee depending on the service. And it could be just based on the expertise, but you're talking about $75,000 to get yourself out of a situation that you could have avoided. This unplanned expense puts further strain on the firm's financial resources, heightening cost effectiveness of the proactive cybersecurity measures they could have had. So one of the things that they ended up facing, as I just said, was that they have a delayed response. So no crisis management plan means that they had no organized response. Because of that, they didn't know what they were going to do. So they ended up having very, poor communication with their clients, and it was delayed and it was vague, and clients got really frustrated and lost trust with them. And 25% of those people took a walk and went somewhere else. They failed to contain the actual event because they didn't have the ability to isolate the instance from being on one computer, so it went onto all of their machines. And now they've got legal and compliance issues like FTC safeguards, and they didn't understand their legal obligations post breach. So that, like now, the recent big change of FTC is that you have a certain amount of time to report a cybersecurity incident, especially if you're in a financial industry. Okay, so here's the question. So what does losing $2 million look like? So this is the breakdown of what it cost them. So direct loss from the attack, $150,000. This is the immediate operational disruptions, loss of billable hours because of the tax season. The engagement of an IT company, again, $75,000, cost incurred for emergency breach assessment, containment, and initial data recovery efforts. They lost $5,000 a day. They were down for 2 months because of all the investigation and all the things of not having client data. So they lost about $300,000 because they lost all of that data. It was all encrypted and they couldn't get it back. And they had no way to get all the work done that they needed to do. They lost about $500,000 over the following year because they lost 25% of their clients because of diminishing trust and service. They also had to pay $200,000. This is the cost for legal advice, potential settlements, and then customer compliance related expenses. Now, at this point, they ended up having to spend $200,000 because they needed to add software upgrades. They had to figure out ways to contain everything. They needed a quick staff training, and they wanted to prevent future incidents. Now, some of that is they have to replace machines. They've got to replace servers. There's a bunch of infrastructure that they have to replace after the cybersecurity incident, depending on what type it is. So that could cost an exorbitant amount of money just to get yourself back up and going. which could mean, replacing equipment depending on the situation. And then they've got to figure out, how do they get out of this hole? So they've got to work on public relations and marketing. They've got to rebuild the firm's reputation, including campaigns and outgoing research programs. And then also, there's also miscellaneous costs. So these would be increased insurance, consulting fees, and then there's a bunch of costs that involve, when you have a data breach, you have to do specific things to take care of your clients. And so this means that you've got to spend a bunch of money to be able to send out notifications or to deal with the influx of phone calls that you've got. So you may have to hire somebody to help you with those things. So here's what we talk about, kind of the lessons learned from the event. So what we're talking about is just the importance of preparedness and needing a proactive cybersecurity measures and incident response plan. Recommendations: we definitely recommend that you invest in regular cybersecurity training, data backups, and a clear communication strategy for your business. This means like you have a comprehensive cybersecurity plan that involves not just a layer, not just virus protection, but it involves multiple layers of security measures, which means that if criminals defeat one, there's another layer to help keep things safe or to minimize the blast radius. This ordeal underscores the importance of cybersecurity readiness, especially in today's digital landscape. And it's a strong reminder of the devastating consequences of being unprepared for cybersecurity threats. So this business made $1.2 million and they had to spend $2 million to get out of the hole. So we're going to talk about just some different types of attacks that are out there. So we're going to talk about ransomware. So ransomware, malicious software that blocks access to data for ransom, spreads mainly via phishing emails, security vulnerabilities, and what we call drive-by downloads. If this leads to data loss, operational disruption, and financial damage, generally this happens, because employees are not alert. So here's the things that you can talk with your employees about. Stay alert, to phishing and suspicious links. Make sure that you're using strong passwords and enable multi-factor authentication. Regularly update your software, and you need to back up your data. Oops. Common mistakes that we see is clicking on unknown links or attachments, neglecting software updates, or using weak passwords. And then we talk about email compromises. This is a really common one that we're seeing a lot of, and really it just means somebody gets unauthorized access to your email. Generally, that means somebody got access to your maybe Office 365, Google Workspace, because you didn't have two-factor turned on, or I've had one case where somebody actually fell for a two-factor link where it asked them if they wanted to authorize, and they said yes. Employees are often the primary target due to their access of sensitive data. And it's very similar. Clicking on suspicious links, opening unverified attachments, sharing passwords or sensitive info, not updating or using weak passwords. You'll see a theme that not updating or using weak passwords causes a lot of problems. The impact of that, of course, is financial loss, possible data breaches, damaging reputation. And then you have password stealing viruses. So again, this is also spread by an actual virus, but it actually collects passwords. And so we want to make sure, again, we want to avoid downloading unverified files. We want to be changing our passwords regularly. We should not be just leaving those passwords for years and years. I recommend rotating passwords, generally once a year. And there's some really good products out there, like Keeper, for example, that does that for you, can actually help you rotate passwords around. And of course, impact, just like all the others, you're looking at losing potential sensitive data and financial losses. So we talk about this, and I guess this goes back to, you see that common theme of passwords. And does your password, or does your company rather, have good password hygiene? Increased risk of vulnerability to hacking because of poor password management, high chances of identity theft, unauthorized access to personal and financial information. And then, consequences of a data breach is really the same as all the others: loss of personal data, financial losses, damage to personal and professional reputation. And a really common, problem is that people use guessable passwords mainly to make it easy on themselves, but we see crazy things that don't make sense at all as to why somebody would use that password, because they just assume that no one can get into the computers. So not updating passwords regularly is a really big issue. Costs associated with recovering from a data breach, potential job loss, when you have a loss of money that can cause, loss of business. And then now AI is getting crazy. I'm sorry that's dark, but AI is getting crazy. And now we're starting to see AI generated content, AI generated emails, deep fake communications, AI powered social engineering, um, and automated malware. And I think it's just something we need to be aware of and make sure that we're doing cybersecurity training for our employees just to help uh, understand how to avoid these types of things. What if somebody calls, it sounds like you, and they're asking for things like gift cards? There's a good chance that may not actually be the person that's asking the question. So here's what we talk about when we talk about employee prevention. So we talk about employee training. We talk about regular backups. We do making sure that you're not clicking on suspicious links or downloads, multi-factor authentication on everything, filtering, email filtering, so that those emails potentially don't even get to your staff, and use of advanced security tools that detect AI generated threats. I think the big key is that new threats are coming out every single day. And so we have to make sure that we have a way of trying to keep up with all the new things that are happening in AI. Just like it's helping criminals, it helps us in our industry make sure that we're looking at behavior monitoring and things like that. And this is what it looks like. This is part of what we do as an IT management company. We offer comprehensive cybersecurity plans, backup, business reviews, staff education, C-suite consulting, uh, and we just make sure that your business is well protected from cybersecurity threats. So, what does it look like to work with us and get all these different things? Uh, we offer cybersecurity strategy sessions, risk assessments to figure out where your business sits, presenting our findings to you, and then we begin a course of action. So if you're watching this today and you're curious as to what to do, you can actually go to cybersecurity and you can actually sign up, and I will help you get going, and we'll get your business looked at so that we can see where your business sits. I kind of went through this quite quickly today. For some reason, I don't see I don't see people hopping on my stream here. So if you're watching this, reach out to me, and I'm offering $500 off your strategy session. So go to cybersecuritystrategysession.com, and I will help you just verify where your business sits as far as cyber security goes. Again, if you have any questions, definitely reach out and just ask, and I'm happy to help you out. Here's the phone number you can reach me at, and my email address. But you can also, again, go to the cybersecurity strategy session.com. We'll see you soon. Thanks.